the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. As such, we are collaborating with First Nations governments and Indigenous organizations to develop a respectful and meaningful territorial acknowledgement. This work also presents an opportunity to learn more about the culture and history of the Indigenous people of our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Should virtual attendees wish to address council either during the public comment period or the question and answer period, use the raise hands feature on your webinar controls. When it is your turn and are prompted, unmute your microphone, state your name, and ask your question. Once your question is ended, you'll be muted again. Are there any council additions? Are there any CIO additions?
No, Mayor.
Can I get a motion, please, to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes, the Special Regional Council meeting of May 17th, 2022. Special Regional Council meeting of May 20th, 2022. Regional Council meeting of May 24th, 2022. Public hearing May 24th, 2022. Special Regional Council meeting of May 26th, 2022. Special Regional Council meeting of May 30th, 2022. Special Regional Council meeting of May 31st, 2022, and the Special Regional Council meeting of June 6th, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt those minutes. Moved by Councillor Roper, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any attendees who wish to comment on tonight's agenda? Administration report number 44, Public Works Loader Purchase Award. Mr. David Dominic. Good evening.
Mayor and Council. So this is a fairly straightforward report before you, and that is basically to recommend purchase of a John Deere 544P loader from Brent Tractor for the listed purchase price plus taxes, which came out of a procurement opportunity that recently closed containing 2 proponents. Brent came in as the lowest compliant bidder, and therefore we recommend award to them for the purchase of a new loader.
Thank you. Mr. Dominic, why is the bid price so different on these? It looks like it's almost double for the Volvo.
Yeah, so the highest bid there, the contractor that you see essentially submitted a loader that is equal in specifications as what we were requesting. However, the price appears to be because it was sourced through a third party and then will be proceeded to be sold to us. So that's it's essentially a markup from what we can analyze.
Thank you. Any other questions from Mr. Dominic? Councillor Roper.
Just wondering what the life expectancy is on the Brent tractor, maybe versus the Lunar, the Volvo tractor.
Both of them are pretty comparable. Both the specifications are the same, so we could expect about the same amount of hours, easily 10,000 hours out of the either piece of machinery at this point. So that would be the hour mark that we would aim for over here.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Souls.
I like it that we're replacing a loader from 1995. That's a really good indicator that we've been doing a good job of managing our assets over all this time, equipment assets. It does blow me away, the price of a 544 loader, because wow, you can just, if you actually did an inflationary comparison from a year ago, you will find something a whole lot more significant than 6%. Regardless, having said that, I'm just kind of curious. It mentions the attachments that are not expected for 4 or 5 months. What attachments are coming along with the machine?
So as per the 2022 budget, we requested the purchase of a snow blade attachment as well as a sweeper broom attachment for the loader.
Perfect. Councillor Penny.
I just want to say that I'm so glad that we're purchasing from a company that has maintained a good presence with employees still in the Northern Rockies. So I'm glad that this is the way the bid went.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Dominic before I call the question? Very well. Can I get a motion then, please, that a John Deere 544P loader be purchased from Brandt Tractor for the purchase price of $334,323 plus all applicable taxes? So moved. Moved by Counselor Penny, seconded by Counselor Roper. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Dominic.
Thank you.
Admin report number 45, Fort Nelson Snowmobile Club. Ms. Jacobs.
Hello, Mayor and Council. The report before you provides an update on the NRM's work with the Fort Nelson Snowmobile Club to facilitate trail maintenance and identify joint funding opportunities. Since the last update that was provided to Council at the November 8th Council meeting, staff have been meeting regularly with the Snowmobile Club to identify the user group's current priorities and develop solutions to achieve these objectives. Among those priorities discussed, the club has expressed an interest in expanding its trail network, and staff are actively working on several of the user group's priority objectives. Generally, the contents of the report outline key items that staff have been engaging on with the Snowmobile Club, as well as with Fortis BC and recreation sites and trails. Going forward, it's anticipated that staff will continue working with the club on their priority objectives and will provide council with more information as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Jacobs? Counselor Andrews.
I just noted that there was talk about the trails wanting to use sponsored Crown Grant property or land that we have slated for the community trail. I'm just having a problem visualizing on where that area is on the map.
Right, absolutely. So we've elected to include an attachment, or rather an attached map, and pull it up here. So the area in question in particular on this proposed phase 2 of the community trail, it's just off of 55th Street, or rather Dump Road. So on the attached map, attachment 1, you'll note going down 55th Street, the area of interest would be just off of Dump Road.
And that would be going up to the Alaska Highway and then over through Cordova, like that whole section there?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Jacobs? Hearing none, thank you very much for your report. Admin report number 46, electric vehicle charging. Ms. Shepherd.
Hi, Mayor and Council. So this report comes in follow-up to a recent inquiry from the Tourism Advisory Committee regarding increasing inquiries for electric vehicle charging in the Northern Rockies. As in the report, provincial legislation is existing to curb emissions, and we'll continue to see increasing numbers of electric vehicles, both from residents and tourism in the region and in all of Canada. As Council is aware already, the NRM is engaged with Charge North for the installation of a level 2 charger, and that is expected to be installed later this year. We're still waiting for updates on that program, but it is coming and things are progressing now past the pandemic. This report is intended to address the need for an immediate interim measure prior to the installation of the Charge North level 2 charger. Additionally, Council may wish to approve up to $1,000 for the installation of a second 240 volt plug, or in the event that there are other costs associated with making the 240 volt plugs that are at Art Fraser accessible. So those are some options.
Any questions for Ms. Shepherd? Councillor Andrews.
It's noted that there's two local businesses that are offering. Is that not an adequate service being provided at the moment?
My understanding is that there's a local business offering as an interim measure. And then there's another one up north. So the electric vehicles currently aren't able to make it all the way without a charge in Fort Nelson. And they could get one at Muncho Lake. And then I think the next spot is Fort Nelson. So there is, on the Plug North website, they are able to get a charge currently through one of our local businesses. But as from my understanding, that's not an advertised service.
Counselor Penny.
I just had one show up at about 5:45 here, received a text, and I sent a staff member down to make access to a plug. So I would greatly appreciate that we make something available. I've been very happy to provide this to passersby just because we were the roadblock. There's many people right now. There's a lot of chatter of this Alaska highway trip and the loop and all this, that people really want to do with electric vehicles, which is great to have them come through our area. And I'm actually very happy to have this type of plug installed instead of like a supercharger where they could get juiced up in 20 minutes and leave. This way they're going to stick around in our town for a night, basically. But yeah, I'm getting a lot more inquiries. We're getting several a week on average of electric vehicle owners that are planning this trip, and it's totally tourism related. It's not, it's not just people commuting or moving somewhere. It's that they're very excited to start this new age of traveling this highway with electric power. So.
Any other comments? Counselor Roper.
How would we advertise the fact that we have these charging stations available? Would we need an additional budget for advertising signage?
So at this time, there are a number of people that are traveling that are asking, making inquiries about the NRM installing a charger. They've offered numerous times to publicly share where people can get charged up in Fort Nelson. So yeah, that would be up to council's discretion. There is $1,000 in this recommendation that could be coming from the operational budget in RDP for advertising if council wished for a longer measure. I guess it's dependent on when the Charge North installation takes place. There is funds already secured in that budget for signage. So I think it will be communicated broadly with those funds when that charger takes place. And alternately, I think the people who need the service will get it from the networking platforms that are currently available.
Great, thank you very much.
Counselor Gerwing.
Thank you. The report makes mention that we may wish to establish a fee per charge. How would, like in reality, how would that work?
Further investigation, I think, is required as to a long-term mechanism for that. I think with the Charge North project, there's a 1-year agreement to charger. For a 240 volt charge, as you saw in the report, you're looking at a cost of approximately $773 per full charge on the identified locations. What that might look like is, if council wished, we could investigate a program through the Recreation Center or the Visitor Information Center, possibly, that maybe it would go through there. There would be challenges, of course, with access according to operational hours and that sort of thing. So I think if council wished to investigate a cost for charging, we need to look at that at a staff level as to how to implement that.
Counselor Roper.
Are there many charging stations that do charge, or would you say that most of them are free of charge?
So far, I'm finding that most are free of charge at this point. I think that as up in the north, especially maybe in the Fort St. John area, there's quite a number of charging available, and in Dawson Creek. And you'll just see them in parking lots like the event center and whatnot. So maybe at this time, it's still being, while there isn't a lot of residents using electric vehicles, and so it's still just being kind of a measure to have something available for tourists traveling, but I think it's likely that you'll see more residents taking up electric vehicles and with the change.
Councillor Penny.
I definitely think that we will have to move to a fee for service eventually. They are paying as they come across the country right now. Petrocan is one of the leading forces in it right now. They have charging stations all across the country, and it averages 25. I think it's about $25 per charge, from what I'm hearing from the many people. And to speak to the advertising of it, I have done zero advertising that I'm willing to plug in an electric vehicle, and I get calls from as far away as Louisiana and Toronto, Quebec, and all over Western Canada. We're fielding calls at the shop. So I think the word will spread pretty fast once they realize they can plug in. And, you know, I definitely think it's going to have to be a short-term deal that we'd offer this for free. Once we get a real charger here, it's pretty tough right now, because for this charge, for them to get a full charge, they could be here for 12 to 18 hours, right? So it's a pretty tough thing to charge for. I mean, I know what it's costing our residents, but at the same time, I hope that them being stuck here for 12 to 18 hours is going to give back to the community in equal amount. But once we have the capability here for them to pull up and charge in a short period of time, we're definitely going to need that. You know, once any agreement with Charge North is finalized, for sure, we're going to have to move into a fee for service. When they go north, if they stop in Muncho Lake, they can charge up, but they have to pay. But I mean, you know, the operator up there has to pay diesel fuel just to run power. So I mean, it's not $7.73 to get a charge at Muncho Lake. It costs the operator much more, multiple times over that. So anyway, but I just thank you very much for this report. It's great.
Any further comments? Councillor Penny, did you want to make the motion then?
I'll make the motion.
We won't fight over it. Councillor Andrews.
That a 240 volt plug be made available immediately for EV charging, and that a budget of 1,000 be approved from the regional development operations budget for the installation of a second 240 volt plug in an alternate location. And that once operational, these charging locations are communicated broadly.
Seconder for Councillor Andrews' motion. Seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? Carried. Administration report number 47. History of designating a dog park in Fort Nelson. Ms. Andakari.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. So this report is mainly for the information purpose, as in response to inquiries received from the community members. The council on April 25th of 2022 directed staff to bring the summary of the previous conversations on designated dog park. So therefore, this report summarizes the conversations previously reported to the council regarding the designated dog parks in Fort Nelson. Council, all the way back in August of 2013, received a report on feasibility of an off-leash dog park, along with the suggestions of potential locations. In the subsequent council meeting, the cost of developing a fenced off-leash dog park at 2 locations out of suggested potential locations, one along the Lagoon Road and another adjacent to the previous aquatic center, deemed most feasible, were presented to the regional council. A discussion ensued about the area along the Lagoon Road as the most viable option, as it was already in use, by the dog owners. With the resolution in 2014 budget included the cost of $25,000 for the development of an off-leash dog park along Lagoon Road, but deferred a final decision until a later date. Further conversation incorporated demonstration forest as an option for an unfenced off-leash dog park, which was not considered a suitable option because of its pre-existing concerns. This resulted in questioning the origin of the idea of establishing an off-leash dog park, and conversation got concluded with the identification of the requirements for public input for the dog parks and to study the prospect of the off-leash dog park in conjunction with the Parks and Trails Master Plan. As outlined in the report, Parks and Trails Master Plan is still in progress and engagement sessions are being planned for the coming year. Yeah, that's everything from my end.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Andikari? Councillor Roper.
Not so much a question, but just some comments. I mean, we have a survey here that says that a community dog park, is needed in the community. We've got some legwork already from a previous council. I think we have a lot of people in the community that would really support this. So I'm not sure what the next steps might be, but I'm really encouraged to see all the work that's already been done. And this is definitely something I'd like to get off the ground. It doesn't seem like it would be very cost prohibitive, and I'm sure there's lots of grants out there that we could procure to get something like this done.
Thank you. Any other comments? Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Admin report number 48. Update on bear response in the community. Mr. O'Shaughnessy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here today to provide the report before you as an update for your information on the history of the Bear Response Pilot Program from 2009 and the current efforts of the NRM alongside WildSafe BC and the CO service to reduce human bear conflicts within the community. In 2009, the NRM entered into a dedicated agreement with BC Conservation Officers Service for a bear response pilot program. The NRM contributed $30,000 to have the CO contribute a minimum of 20 hours per week for 18 weeks to the program. The BRPP continued with measured success until 2017, when the available budget was decreased from 30,000 to 3,000, thus diminishing the ability of the NRM to subsidize CO's involvement in the program, resulting in the BRPP ending January 1st, 2017. In the absence of the BRPP, and since 2018, the NRM has been successfully aligned with WildSafe BC in attaining a WildSafe community coordinator through their program each year, including this year. The community coordinator to date has played an integral part in the development of the bear hazard assessment completed in 2020, community education, assistance with monitoring of garbage under the wildlife attractants bylaw, and now currently with the development of the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan. The Human Bear Conflict Management Plan will be a living document, adaptive in nature, that will help guide the reduction of human bear conflict and assist the NRRM in achieving a bear smart community status. The NRRM's local conservation officer has also played a significant role in the development of these documents, as well as working alongside the NRM and our local WildSafe community coordinator on the integration of a bear-resistant garbage bin pilot program. In 2021, 32 bear-resistant bins were allocated to members of the public. Of 65 bins that were available, only those 32 were accepted at that time. We're currently in the process of issuing the remaining 33 bins. A survey was sent out to the 32 recipients in November of 2021. We received 11 responses with varying opinions. In a joint effort, NRM bylaw, CO service, and the WildSafe BC community coordinator worked together to tag, identify non-compliance in relation to garbage bins and the wildlife attractants bylaw. This is followed up with education to the homeowners and using enforcement only as a last resort to repeat offenders. To that end, it should be noted that bylaw is a secondary function of the positions of the fire chief, the deputy fire chief, and the chief building inspector. And as such, the capacity to follow up on all aspects of bylaw when necessary is limited, which can result in inconsistencies and may create frustration for staffs in the public. As well as the aforementioned, a report on options to deal with fruit-bearing trees has been obtained from an arborist, which is attached for your reference. Discussions are ongoing with the required departments on options outlined in this report. Finally, to understand how other communities might respond to resident complaints with regards to bears, staff reached out to 5 other communities. Of those 5 other communities, all advised that they advised their public to contact the CO service. There was no information offered up from any of those communities who assumed that they were involved with WildSafe PC or were working alongside the CO service to improve the situation. In fact, a couple have never heard of WildSafe PC. Finally, in response to council's resolution on May 24th, a meeting has been arranged with a local CO officer for discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shaughnessy. Are there any questions? Councillor Penny.
Questions for council that may have been here when this program funding was reduced. You know why it was reduced so much?
I can give one take on that, and that is that you'll notice also just in the previous report, the dog park also kind of lost steam at the same era. That was coming off the tail end of the reduction in oil and gas activity in the world. We also had lots of community pressure on tightening budgets and tightening the strings on a lot of different things. That was part of it.
Councillor Gerwin?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. It's my remembrance that that was in response to the CO service being down to 1 CO as opposed to 2 COs. And if I'm remembering it correctly, the council of the day felt that they weren't getting what they had paid for. And so we felt that it could be better dealt with in another manner, right? So when it was working, but we were down to 1 CO and they were up the highway a lot. And so, yeah, that's how I remember it.
Councillor Andrews?
And I believe around that time, we had the WildSafe coordinator in-house as well, helping out. Did we not?
If I'm remembering it correctly, I believe that was in response to removing it from the CO service because they
Bringing it
couldn't
in-house.
guarantee that there would be the 2 COs. And as we've seen that they do move in and out with quite regularly within the community. And so the WildSafe coordinator is stable in the community and has done a lot of good work.
Any other comments? Councillor Roper?
Just a question. Are we pursuing Bear Smart status with the province?
Mr. Barrett? Mr. O'Shaughnessy?
Yes, Councillor, we are. It was one of council's resolutions from last year. We put the request forward. The Human Bear Conflict Management Plan is one of 6 steps towards that. The Bear Hazard Assessment is another, and the rest of them are outlined in the report as well.
Mr. Penny, Councillor Penny?
It just seems that there seems to be a correlation between whether the service dwindled prior to the funding going away, or if, you know, by taking the funding away, that it went away. But it definitely, just anecdotally and from my observations, it seems that the bear situation in the town itself has definitely gotten worse in the last 5 years. So I don't know if council would even think about looking back into getting involved in this kind of program.
Mr. Barry?
Just to add a little to the discussion regarding the program. So it goes back to about 15, 16. So in 2016, when I took a look at our budget documents and some of the minutes from the discussions, what had occurred is, as Councillor Grooming said, there was one of the seasons, there was a service, I'll call it a service reduction because of lack of capacity in the CO service. The CO service the next year reduced the ask because they carried funds over from the previous year. So typically it was like a $40,000 ask. I think that year it went down to about 10,000 the following year because it carried funds over, which was in 16. I'm going to say in 17, the ask was about 30 grand to look after that particular service for that year. And it was about the same time when the council of the day requested cost saving measures to be put forward. As Councillor Souls mentioned, I think there was another one of those times when there was lots of significant pressure from the public at the time. And given, you know, some of the previous history with the program, with the capacity concern,
And the fact, honestly, at that time, there were some comments made that, the bear issues weren't necessarily a big issue at that time either. Interestingly. And then of course, and then the subsequent year after that, or 2 years later, was when we jumped or were part of the Wild Safe. In the first year, we weren't successful with the Wild Safe program. When the program was working, or when the capacities or the program was working, I hear some of the discussions among council regarding some of the challenge around the reaction times, or the opportunities of haze bears or whatnot. The BRP program was a very much a reactionary program, but it was responsive at the time because there was resources that were utilized to deal with specific to that were subsidized essentially from the municipality and used to deal with things around investigating bins at the time, or commercial bins and whatnot. And they provided a report back to council specific. The Wild Safe program is more of a science-based proactive approach to how do you prevent the bear-human conflict in the same space, right? So very much two different avenues, but listening to some of the comments and some of the concerns in the community, the BRP program, if it was around today, which I didn't even know it's available, it was a pilot program at the time, and it was brought in, was effective when the capacity was there for sure.
For sure, I believe so too. I think that we have less population now, but we still have a population that doesn't deal with their garbage in a bear-proof manner. But we had that back then too. And there seemed to be, again, anecdotally, it seemed to be way less issues, and the issues were in the fall, right? And I think what has set it off this year so early is we did have that problem bear right at the beginning of May, and myself included is going like, oh man, really? So now we're starting in May. We don't typically have to worry about it till late August or September, but now we're in May and already this bear is a problem. I haven't heard anything from this bear lately, but maybe I'm just missing the information. I really like how Whistler sends bylaw out to the area. They don't deal with the bear, but perhaps they're helping the homeowner or whomever who has had that encounter, right? So I think that could be something that's missing too. Yeah, I mean, I think it's still worth talking about it for sure. We have all these fruit trees now. Is that what's causing the problem? Our garbage, and I know that in a lot of instances, we're not taking care of our garbage properly, but I think in past years, we had those same issues. And then the other thing, and I'm sure we'll talk to the COs about it in that meeting, is that the province's response to problem bears has changed. They use a different matrix now than they did 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Now maybe I'm wrong, but maybe the change in the metrics has led to some of our continued or new encounters with bears. Like, I don't know. I think it's not just a black and white kind of an issue, right? But I think it's an issue, and I would really like us to continue talking about it and continue investigating what we can do about it.
Thank you, Councillor Gerwin. Councillor Souls.
My nose is nowhere near as good as the black bear's nose. And in the spring, I can smell a barbecue from a mile away. Ooh, yes. No, I say that on purpose because of the attraction in the spring is obviously not fruit trees. There's no fruit until fall. And so it's actually a tail end response, a time of the year to respond. I actually think that just along the line though of fruit trees, it's one thing from a food security point of view, and the farmer in me says everybody should have fruit trees in the yard, like 10 of them. And yes, we should all figure out how to deal with the fruit that grows on the fruit trees. Don't have an issue with that. But one of the ways of mitigating the conflict at that time of year is for us to have fruit trees elsewhere. Like, imagine having a bunch of fruit trees out along the airport road or someone far away enough that we could plant fruit trees along our roadside somewhere else. And that actually does work. I know that works because in the Peace Country, you see the regional district didn't respond because that's the nature of the regional district. It's the area. In their area, anyone who grows an oat farm keeps all the bears away from everyone else's places because the bears are attracted to the oats fields. So anyway, so the concept of actually giving the bears something to do, but just not in our backyard, is not a bad approach to actually helping to mitigate this.
Thank you. I guess the only thing I'd add is, when I listen to news reports where bears are euthanized down in the lower mainland, it seems like they are much quicker at euthanizing those bears than they are ones in our neighborhood. But without more information, I really can't say. But it seems like when a bear wanders into a neighborhood in Surrey, the conservation officers are pretty quick to euthanize that bear. When it happens in Fort Nelson, they're looking for ways to discourage the bear from coming into town. But you know what, it could be just the way the news comes out. So anyway, that's what I've noticed. Any other comments for Mr. O'Shaughnessy? Councillor Penny.
I'm just posed a question to council here. The appetite to even have staff even look into if going back to this sort of project is even available, because as Mr. Perry mentioned, that it was a pilot project back then and then hasn't been funded for so long. Maybe it's not available, but it'd be nice if we could at least have staff reach out before we make the decision if we would do it again, even if it's available.
And
Councillor Goring.
I would like to add to that too. It's, a really good point is brought up about bylaw enforcement. We've had this conversation before, like we're not active on our bylaw enforcement, right? And I think that is a missing piece as well. So it'd be nice if everybody followed the bylaws to the letter of the law, but they don't. And I don't really believe that we should be pitting neighbor against neighbor to have to report that, I'm not taking care of my garbage. And so I would like to see, in addition to, I think that's a really great idea, to see if the CO service would even be interested in partnering in that project again. But in addition to that, I would like us to continue talking about bylaw enforcement. And I don't know that that's a best fit to have our fire chief and assistant fire chief dealing with that.
Mr. O'Shaughnessy, have you heard of whether or not the COs have any appetite for that sort of activity?
No, Mayor, I haven't. I'm sorry.
Mr. Barry?
No, I haven't either. I was just going to comment on Councillor Goring's statement on bylaw enforcement. We're seeing an increasing challenge to around the bylaw piece because we've never been in a position to actively or have the capacity to actively enforce bylaw. It's side of desk enforcement, basically. I mean, the fire chief, for example, there's been some challenges at times when the bins have been tagged and the fire chief spent 14 hours with a member out in the middle of nowhere the day after garbage day one day llast week, assisting the RCMP with an issue. And that's, all due respect, more important than following up on the bins at the time. So we have there's some challenges there. So we intend to have some further discussion. We have the animal control discussion, the contract, for the new contract that will come out in the new year. We want to discuss with council, and it's opportunity then that we would like to discuss potential opportunities around bylaw enforcement and some thoughts that we might have, just to, if council does actually wish to have more of an active approach when it comes to bylaw versus the reaction from a complaint driven perspective, because we're not actively out. And even when we do receive complaints, sometimes there's a delay in being able to react.
Councillor Gerwing.
So just picking up on what you said about the new animal control contract isn't coming out till the new year.
There's an interim one currently that's in place, or going to be in place here. It's when the original one that was supposed to expire, it ended early, unfortunately. So that's what we had. We had a bit of a gap in service that we just recently seen because of the contractor. The renewed contract will be in January, I believe, is when we plan on having the procurement process for that particular one. And we're looking at discussions with councils around what that enforcement and piece would look like in terms of that contract and the service that contract will provide. So
Can I get some information on that interim contract on the animal control? The interim animal control contract, can I get some information on that?
So what information?
Well, like, what does that look like? Who's doing it? Like, is it Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 still, or?
So the interim one was just, yeah, it's a 7-month, 6-month contract, I believe. 9 months, something like that. Yeah, because it was a very, it was an unexpected ending of the previous contract. So the renewal, or I should say the procurement that went out for that one was the existing contract, because we haven't had that conversation with council to change that service level, because that service level, when we change it, is going to most likely increase, if we were to change it, sorry, if council wished to increase that service level, then we would most likely increase the costs of that. So we're looking at some other opportunities probably within that certain contract. So the discussion with council, specifically the animal control contract, will be for the one that we procure for the new year, which was when the end date was going to be for the one that we're currently on. The one that's currently, which I don't believe, Jay, that we've actually awarded just yet, right? We're just right in the midst of that last little piece with that one. Is basically the same contract in terms of the service level.
Right, so I guess what I'm trying to determine is, when is the interim contract going to be in play? Like, when are we going to go back to having some sort of animal control services?
So we do currently are dealing with it internally. We're just going through the process, the procurement process. So when the opportunity closes, then it's confirming that they meet the criteria. Then we have, so there's meetings with them, and also some training, because we can't just because the individuals that put the submission in aren't necessarily trained. So we need to go through that process from the due diligence perspective on our end, and ensure that they have the proper training to do the work properly. In the meantime, we are dealing with stuff, which unfortunately, again, is fire department,
right,
dealing with dogs and cats. But that's what we're left with, unfortunately.
So then will council be informed when this interim animal control service is back up and running?
Yep.
I guess. Okay, thank you.
You betcha.
Councillor Andrews.
I'd just like to show my support for changing up the bylaw system and how it's enforced. Because I do think that maybe not these current issues we're having, but come fall time, a lot of the messes you see are garbage and attractants, that if we had a bylaw officer or somebody who was going and taking care of these things, would probably mitigate some of these issues as well.
Mr. Barry.
And for sure, yes, no, and honestly, and we're tracking the time, and the amount of time right now that's expended to deal with bylaw is an extreme amount of time, and it's just from a capacity perspective and I guess a life balancing perspective when it comes to what's occurring over the fire hall and then with what's with Sean. It's just not sustainable so when we listen to council's concerns around wanting to increase, and totally get it, right? Now we have rules and we're not necessarily enforcing them, right? And those bylaws are council's bylaws and rules. We want to bring forward and say, you know, if you want to increase it, we probably will need to look at doing something different than we look at enforcement.
Any other comments? Councillor Roper.
Just back to Councillor Penny's question, whether or not there's an appetite to maybe reinstate this program or do something similar. And my feedback is that yes, I would absolutely be interested in that.
Can we reach out to the COs and see if there's they still have that program going?
I can make a motion for that, I guess. Make a motion that we have staff look into the possibility of I don't know what you want to call it, reopen the program that we had, if it's even a possibility.
I would second that.
Very well. Moved by Councillor Penny, seconded by Councillor Gerwing. All those in favor? Carried.
I'll just add, Mayor, the CO next week. Right now, the plan is to have that meeting at noon on the 21st, as we chatted about earlier today in the meeting, or after the meeting, I should say. And the inspector and another individual from the CO2 is expected to be on. I'm not sure in person, but if not, attending virtually. So we've got a comment and some feedback for you, Councillor Gerwing, specific to because they've asked if there's any items or whatnot to kind of bring it up so they can prep for it. So this is one of them too that can be brought up and most likely discussed at that meeting next week.
Very well. Any other questions for Mr. O'Shaughnessy? Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Correspondence, Northern Rockies Regional Municipality letter to John Ebel, the geothermal project manager of 2-day Ken Geothermal support for Fort Nelson First Nations geothermal funding proposal. Letter from Councillor Lorianne Rutenberg, UBCM president, for regarding the 2022 resolutions. Letter from Kim Aglinski and Bev Vandersteen, Port Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce, Community Forage stumpage rate policy review. Letter from Adrian Dix, Minister of Health, response to free prescription contraceptives, and a letter from Joy Fallow regarding ICBC license. Any comments on those correspondence? Councillor Gerwing.
Yeah, I think we should have a conversation about Joy Fowlow's letter.
Okay.
She's requesting some support on trying to get more than one motorcycle licensing test in the community. So currently, right now, they only come up once in the season to actually do the motorcycle road test. So at the very least, I think we should check out the accuracy of that information. And if that's the reality, then can we write a letter?
Councillor Penny.
Comment to that. They come up twice, but in order to get your motorcycle license, it's 2 stages. You have to go and do a skills assessment first, and then you have to go 2 weeks before you can go for your road test. And being someone, it took me 8 years, 9 years, until I finally, it worked out for me that I was able to write my permit early enough to get my skills assessment done and then to have the test done by the end of summer. It really, truly took and I have spoken to so many individuals in this town that have had that exact same experience, just because of timing. I mean, life gets in the way, work gets in the way. So I would fully support that we send a letter, because this is not, the motorcycle is one thing for sure that pointed out, but just for kids trying to get their license. I mean, if they don't pass the first time for whatever reason it is, I mean, that it's months before they get again. And as she stated, I mean, with the motorcycle side, I mean, they come in late August or early September. Good luck being guaranteed that you can get on a motorcycle in the morning, right? So yeah, I'd be fully in support of us sending a letter, at least asking how we can move the service up.
Councillor Penny, first of all, I might suggest that we ask staff to check into the dates and times and some of the information around this letter from Joy Fallow and come back, and then we'll look at it and proceed with the letter at that time.
I'd second that motion, Mayor.
Very well. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Penny, that staff look into the motorcycle, ICBC motorcycle testing in Fort Nelson. All those in favor?
I just add something to that.
You could try, sure.
I could try.
We were just about had our hands up. Go ahead.
Could we ensure that we let Ms. Fallow know what actions that we are taking?
Very well. Can we add that to the motion? Okay, we will. Seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? It worked. Very well. Council information package for May 22nd, council information package for June 1st, and council information package for June 8th. Received for information. There are no additions. Council reports. Councillor Penny.
Report, maybe not quite, just some little bit more of a push here and a little bit of report on how we're making out with the tourism side of this fishing derby that we have coming up on the weekend. As I had hoped, we're getting quite a bit of traffic across that app that the council was gracious enough to approve us use on this fishing derby from all over Western Canada. And as the timing works out, we actually have a fishing show host in our area this week. And I spoke with him on Friday, and they're going to include the fishing derby in the episode that they're filming currently in the Northern Rockies. That's Angelo Viola from Fishing Canada is here. So he reached out to me late last week, and we made arrangements to meet this week, and he's going to stick around and do a whole bit on the derby and make sure it gets a good showing there. He said 5 minutes or so out of an episode will just be on the derby. So yeah.
Excellent exposure for us.
Great job, Counselor.
Any other reports? Councillor Gerwin, go ahead.
So the last chamber meeting that I've been available to attend was May 26th. They've had a few since then, but I wasn't available. They've moved their Community Excellent Awards event to October now. They have a Fun in the Sun golf tournament, August the 28th. As you all know, the Visitor Center is now open 7 days a week. The board had their strategic planning sessions this weekend, and the board's or the Chamber of Commerce new board, the president is Kimmy Glinsky, with the following: Tony McDonald, Brenda Enax, Dave Milner, David Moore, Leonard Peterson, Abigail Neville, Ben Wall, Michelle Mitchell, Peter Smith, Murray Apps, and Tyler Wall as members of the board. I attended the Resource Coalition Rail Study presentation on June the 8th, and I'm really am looking forward to the public release of that report. And if you haven't read it, or I think you can view the presentation because I think it was recorded, I would highly recommend that you, it was 3 hours long, but it was very informative. Attended the Community Health Plan Steering Committee meeting June the 10th. Mr. Blackie, who's our regional health advocate, presented a briefing note reviewing the diagnostic accreditation and provider certification process for diagnostic imaging services at the Port Nelson General Hospital. Truly, that is the name of the briefing note. I kid you not. This report was penned as a result of some inquiries as to the type of ultrasounds that are available at FNGH. If anyone is interested in receiving a copy of the report, please let me know and I can forward. Two conclusions that were reached. One, that the partners are encouraged to conduct ongoing advocacy to encourage Northern Health to continue optimizing diagnostic imaging services currently approved, including identify opportunities for service expansion, and advocating for ongoing review of the Northern Health Service Distribution Framework for the hospital will identify opportunities to sustain or grow diagnostic imaging services. Referrals for the month of May, and I just want to highlight for council that these are referrals to specialists only. These do not include any of the referrals where we have to go out for a CT scan, an ultrasound. They don't include any of that. So just for referrals to specialists, they're in the month of May, 38 for general surgery, 20 for pediatric general, 18 for orthopedic. The CHP work plan is being updated and reviewed by the committee, and work continues on updating the committee's terms of reference. Urban System has settled in nicely and brings a wide skill set to the committee. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. So for my report, attended the Rotary Club of Fort Nelson last Wednesday, and attended the golf course for the grads of Fort Nelson Secondary School. Also attended the rail study and attended in Vancouver for the Indigenous Partnership Awards ceremony. So all of those were really good events. Anyone else? Are there any questions from the media? Okay, I'll make a motion that this meeting be closed pursuant to section 91J of the Community Charter. I have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Souls. All those in favor? Carried, and we are in a closed meeting.
He's been granted